venture capital, in my opinion, really is a club. And if you're not in that club, you're not going to raise money. Now, independent of your idea, independent of you and your skill and your willpower, like, you don't matter. Your idea doesn't matter. Are you in the club? In order to be in the club, it typically is a function of what school you went to. And it's really like, did you go to an Ivy League school? Did you go to MIT? Or did you go to Stanford? Like, the vast majority of people who are able to raise venture capital went to those handful of schools. Okay. Or do you know people in venture capital through a previous job? Maybe you were at another startup that used a venture capital firm and you have connections through that. Okay. So because you have a job that got you connected in with venture capital, or maybe you just worked in venture capital yourself. So a lot of people who do digital health startups, they used to work in a venture capital firm, so they know a lot of people. Okay. Or you have friends or family, like they were your roommate in college, or it's your uncle, okay, or your aunt, okay. Or a lot of healthcare venture capitalists, serial entrepreneurs, and they've already started a company and they were successful in running that company. And so just know that if you are brand new to being an entrepreneur, that you're competing with a bunch of entrepreneurs who are starting their second and their third businesses. So they already have a track record of success. The other thing too is just geographically, these people live in 3 places. They live in the San Francisco Bay Area, Silicon Valley. They live in the New York City area, and they live in Boston. Okay, so we were not in that club. The vast majority of all of you watching are not in that club. The vast majority of you did not go to an Ivy League school or MIT or Stanford. You don't have friends or family. You're not in San Francisco, New York, or Boston. Listen, you're like me, okay? And so you're not going to raise venture capital. So don't waste your time and don't try. You can try if you want. The reason I would say not even to try is because it is a waste of time, because it is a super low probability that it will happen. So just now, that does not stop you from starting the business. And that the alternative is, it's called bootstrapping. Let me give you an example of sort of the prototypical person that's able to raise venture capital. There's this company called Rightway, which is a healthcare navigation firm that didn't really compete with us because they started kind of after we had already sold the business. Okay, they raised $2 million. Their CEO raised $2 million in seed funding, $8 million in Series A from Tiger Global, which frankly is one of the most well-known funds in the world. They raised $20 million Series B, and they raised $100 million Series C at like a valuation of like over $1 billion. They only had a handful of customers when they raised their seed round in Series A and Series B. I don't even know if they had any customers. Okay, their CEO went to Harvard. He then worked at Goldman Sachs. He then worked in private equity. Okay, so he was the prototypical person for being in the club. I would argue that there are gobs of digital health ideas that fail that are started by people who are already in the club, and they were able to get funded because they were in the club. Okay, so I'm not saying anything bad about that. What I'm saying is the vast majority of people are not in that club, and therefore you have to start the business on your own. Okay, which is okay. It's very doable. I think it is the best way to do it because you preserve your ownership in the company. You don't get diluted. You don't have to sell your shares and your percent ownership to a venture capital firm. You maintain ownership of the company, which is great. You want to preserve equity. So bootstrapping allows you to do that. So now let me tell you how to bootstrap. You have to work 2 jobs. You have your day job where you're working 40 hours a week, and then you have your startup where you're working 40 hours a week. Now, in order to work 40 hours a week on your startup, One way to do it is you work 2 hours in the morning before your day job. You work 2 hours after your day job. So that's 4 hours per work day, 5 days a week. So that gets you 20 hours. And then you work 10 hours on Saturday, and then you work 10 hours on Sunday. So that is how you are able to work a second job while you are bootstrapping. Okay.